Well folks, spring is finally here. It's a pretty warm April day out today. It's supposed to get up into the mid-60s, which will be pretty nice. So once again, I'm over here across town working on the 61 GMC 5000. I'm going to be cutting the windshield out of it today. I got to get the trim out of it, the windshield out. Got to clean up this trim and get it ready for my other windshield that I got to install, the new windshield. So along with that, once it's out, I also have to clean out the ridge where it sits down in there. I don't know if the camera's going to pick it up, but there's a lot of rust and whatnot. So once this rubber's out of here, I got some Rust-Oleum primer and paint. I'm going to tape this all off and make sure I get that all scraped out and chipped out of there and then paint it so it'll have a nice fresh coat for when the new gasket goes in, the new silicone and everything else. And I did actually, last week after work, I went down and I applied for another title for this truck, a Massachusetts title. So luckily everything went through with the old North Carolina title. So should be getting my title within the next 3 to 4 weeks. And then once I get the windshield done and I get my parking brake squared away, I'm going to be taking this down and getting it registered. So I'm shooting for the end of April, beginning of May, but we'll have to see what happens. So anyways, I guess we could start cutting out this windshield and see how it looks underneath. Alright, so in order to cut this windshield out, we're going to be taking a razor knife. We're going to just run it right down the inside of this gasket along the edge, because this is how I get all the windshields out of my other trucks that I went through. Just cut the gasket out, pull the chrome out, and then we can pull the windshield out. So we're going to be using a razor knife. Oh, wait a minute. That's not a knife. That right there, that's a knife. See, my good friend Mick Dundee always told me you got to have a knife on you at all times. See, we were down in Australia, see, right about Walkabout Creek. Well, anyways, we're down there hunting crocs, and old Mick, luckily he had his knife with him. See, this croc came out of the swamp, so Mick grabbed his knife, and he proceeded to stick it right into the head of the croc. Lucky for him, thing would have chopped his bleeding leg right off. This is pretty dry rotted all up around here, especially up in the top, so hopefully it should all come out fairly easily. It's probably going to be in a whole bunch of chunks, but it doesn't matter. Windshield came out pretty well. Got all the rubber cut out and the trim and everything on the back of the truck. There's a little bit of rust up top. It's not too bad. It was starting to rot out, you could see a little bit, but it's not completely gone. There's still enough integrity there for the other gasket, and down below seems to be all right. I gotta chip it and see what I can make out of it. But the other side, on the passenger side, seems to be pretty good. It's just mostly over on the driver's side that the moisture got into. So I'm gonna start chipping this, wire brushing it up, and see what we come up with. I got the groove all cleaned out and everything. I got everything taped off, and as you can see, I got the Rust-Oleum rusty metal primer, the brush paint stuff. So that's all been painted. It actually dries pretty quick, so I'm going to let it sit for a couple hours, being that it's nice and sunny and warm out. It'd be nice if I can get a coat of black on it today. That way it'll be all set to go for next weekend. So that's pretty much it. Just going to let it sit, and then we can see if we can slap a coat of black on it, and we can go from there. Well, it's a couple weeks later, and we're back over here with the 61 GMC. And as you can see, I got the sill for the windshield. That's all been painted, and it's ready to go. What I decided to do is have somebody else put the windshield in who knows what they're doing, because I really didn't want to break it. It's only a one-shot deal. And I found a guy in the area who does antique windshields in all the cars and the trucks, and he's actually done them in the GMCs like these before, so he's gonna be putting that in next week for me, which worked out nice. So today I'm over here putting in seat belts. I got my fuel sending unit and my new fuel line that I got to put in, along with my alternator, which I don't know if I mentioned it, but that quit charging on me when I first started this up this year. So I ended up rebuilding the whole thing on the inside. I changed out everything, still couldn't get it to charge, and I put the old rectifier back in, I believe it was, and I finally got it to charge again. So it's got all new innards except for that. But of course, once again, I got all the way across town and I forgot the bolts to mount this to the bracket. so I can't put it in today, unfortunately. That's why I can't wait to get this thing back to the house, so I don't have to keep bringing stuff across town and forgetting things and whatnot. So the seat belts, I only got the 2 outside ones mounted. I got some 70s GMC seat belts that came out of the 66 parts truck from the 64 build. Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to pop a couple holes in the floor right about here and the same spot over there, because I've got seat belts for obviously 3 people across the bench seat. So I got to get all those mounted, and I really don't have a good place to mount them anywhere underneath here where these tank mounts are. So that's probably going to have to wait till it gets back to the house. Obviously enough I can get it done before it gets inspected, which I don't think this needs them, but I'm putting it in there anyways just to have them. So right now we're going to be putting the new fuel sending unit in, because this one's junk and it doesn't work. Obviously enough, all the wires are disconnected. So I got a new one that has a 5/16 outlet rather than a 3/8. So what I had to do, because all the plumbing underneath this is 3/8 to the front, so I had to buy a piece of brake line, and I had to cut it and TIG weld a 3/8 end onto a 5/16 piece of brake line. So that'll get me from here to the 3/8 stuff underneath, and everything should work out. So anyway, so we'll get this old one pulled out and we can start running all the lines. And get this fuel line off. And that's the other disadvantage of working across town. I only have my travel toolbox, so when you need a 3/4 inch wrench and you don't have it, you got to use vice grips. Alright, I got all my screws out. I already had this out once when I first got the truck. And as you can see, there's really not much left to it. The float that was on it was leaking, so I took that off. The electronics were pretty much pieced together at one point. And I ran it through the glass bead blaster just to clean all the rust off of it, made a screen for the end and stuffed it back in the tank just for something. But hopefully, and look at that, just fell apart. So goes to show you how good that was. So hopefully the wiring all off to the dash is still good and our gauge works when we put the new one in, which I'm going to test that. I got a battery with me today, so I'll throw the battery in, hook it up, ground it, and I'll move it and see if the gauge on the dash moves also. I ran into a couple electrical issues with the dash. There's one wire on the back. I don't want to move it right now because it's working, so I can show you guys. And I guess you really can't see it. That plug right there, the ground pin on there, the connector that's crimped onto the wire came off. Somebody tried to fix it. So I just got it on there enough to get the dash to work. Obviously enough, the dash doesn't have any ground. So now I'm able to get my gas gauge to work. If I turn my key on and I move the float all the way up to full and all the way back down to empty. So that works now. So what I'm going to end up doing is taking the pin off the back of this, that wire right there, and the pin comes right out. Those are just twisted together. So I'm going to take the pin to the house, I'm going to solder a new wire on, and then I can cut this back and splice it in with another butt splice that's a little cleaner than this. And then my dash should have ground again. The gas gauge should work without a problem. So this is the new gas gauge. I just got it rigged up here to give it a shot. But now that everything works, I can slip this into the tank, get this all bolted in, and start running the plumbing for it. So my new fuel sending unit is in, along with the line. Unfortunately, the tubing bender that I have doesn't go up to 5/16, so I had to bend it around one of the U-bolts that holds the spring pack to the rear end, which it didn't come out as nice as I wanted it to, but for now it'll work. At a later date, I'll probably pick up some more line and make a new one and bend it correctly, but for the time being, that'll do. So, being that my alternator isn't on here, I can't run my fan at the moment, but I am going to give this a little start up just to run it for a minute or two and pull the gas up through it and make sure everything checks out. So, let's see if this will fire up. I don't have my dashboard connected, but obviously enough, being that it's old enough, that won't make a difference. I don't know if it's going to stick, but it doesn't hurt to give it a couple taps. Not too bad for a startup. It's been sitting for about 3 or 4 weeks now, I think, if I remember correctly. It's been a while since I ran it last. But once I get the alternator on and I can finish up my seatbelts and everything and the glasses in it, it'll be all set. I ended up getting the title for it in the mail about a week ago from Massachusetts, so it'll be ready for registration and insurance. And then hopefully before long it'll be on the road by the end of the month, because I'd really like to put it in the Memorial Day parade here in town this year. I don't know if I'm going to make it, but I think it'll be cutting it close. I also picked up a flatbed for it, which I'll go and show you guys right now. So here's the bed that I picked up for it. It's a 12 by 8 foot bed. Nice thick decking on it, wood deck. Also came with all the racks for the sides of it. And the guy also threw in a headboard too, which was pretty nice, but I gotta cut the sides off of it and the bottom, and I have to fix those. I also have to shorten it down a little bit because it's a little wider than what the bed is, because the bed's just under 8 feet. So it still has the mud flaps on it. It's a little rotted in some places on the side, but aside from that, not too bad. It's a little soft over here. But I gotta get the truck back to the house, clean the frame off, and I'm gonna paint it black, and then once that's done I can drop the bed on.